We think of love as something modern, something we invented along with poetry and candlelit dinners and diamond rings. But what if love is far older than any of that? What if the first time a human heart ached for another person happened not in a city, not in a temple, not in a palace, but on an open plain, under a sky with no name for the stars, beside a fire that had no word for warmth? Before language, before civilization, before we were even fully human, something was already pulling us toward each other, not just for survival, not just for reproduction, something deeper, something that looked, from the outside, a lot like love. This is the story of how prehistoric humans fell in love. And it is stranger, older, and more recognizable than you ever expected. The first clue that prehistoric humans felt something deeper than instinct comes not from art, not from language, but from the way they buried their dead. At a site called Shanidar Cave in northern Iraq, archaeologists found the skeleton of a Neanderthal man who had died roughly 60,000 years ago. Around his bones, they found pollen, concentrated deposits of wildflowers, hyacinths, groundsel, ephedra. Someone had laid flowers over his body. Someone had taken time, in a world where survival consumed every waking moment, to gather flowers and place them on a grave. That is not survival behavior. That is grief. And grief, at its core, is love with nowhere left to go. At another site in Spain, archaeologists found a Neanderthal child, buried with a stone tool placed carefully beside the body. At La Ferracie in France, 8 Neanderthal individuals were found buried together. A family, possibly, laid to rest in the same ground. These were not creatures acting purely on instinct. These were beings who felt the absence of the ones they loved. Here is something that should stop you for a moment. The brain of a prehistoric human was not fundamentally different from yours. The same neurochemicals that flood your system when you fall in love, oxytocin, dopamine, serotonin, vasopressin, were already present and already active in the brains of people living 100,000 years ago. When a prehistoric man saw a woman who made his heart move faster, his brain released the same dopamine surge that yours does today. When a mother held her newborn child for the first time, the same oxytocin, the bonding hormone, flooded her system. The architecture of love is not cultural, it is biological. It is built into the operating system of the human brain at a level far deeper than language or civilization could reach. Evolution shaped these responses because they worked. Pair bonding, 2 individuals committing to each other and to raising offspring together, breed dramatically increased the survival chances of children in a brutal world. Love, in the coldest evolutionary terms, was a strategy. But strategies can become something more, and somewhere along the way, for our ancestors, they did. But attraction in the prehistoric world was not random. It was ruthlessly practical, even when it did not feel that way. For women in a world without hospitals, without law, without any safety net at all, choosing the wrong partner was not just heartbreak, it was a death sentence. For herself and for her children. So the signals she read in a potential mate were precise and specific. Physical strength, the ability to hunt, to fight, to carry a wounded child home. Social standing within the group. Did others respect him? Did they follow him? Did he share what he had? Evidence of good health, clear eyes, straight teeth, smooth skin unmarked by disease. These were not shallow preferences. They were survival calculations wrapped in the feeling we call attraction. For men, the calculus was different, but equally precise. Signs of fertility, youth, health, the ability to carry and sustain new life. And beyond the physical, loyalty. In a world where raising a child took years of constant care, a partner who would stay mattered more than almost anything else. Love at its origin was a deeply serious business. Where there is love, there is jealousy. And jealousy, it turns out, is just as ancient. Archaeological sites across the world show evidence of violent conflict between prehistoric males. Skull fractures, broken jawbones, healed wounds consistent with repeated fighting. Some of that violence was over territory, some was over food, and some, almost certainly, was over mates. In the animal kingdom, male competition for females is universal. Elk lock antlers. Elephant seals crash into each other with full body weight. Silverback gorillas tear the world apart to protect their position. Our ancestors were no different, but prehistoric jealousy was not just physical. Evidence suggests that social ostracism, Being excluded from the group was used as punishment for betrayal. In a world where the group was the only thing standing between you and death, being cast out was a sentence almost as final as violence. Loyalty was not just a romantic ideal, it was a survival requirement, and breaking it had consequences that could end your life. The idea that prehistoric humans simply mated randomly and moved on is one of the most persistent myths about our ancestors. The evidence tells a very different story. At sites across Europe and Asia, archaeologists have found pairs of individuals buried together, side by side, facing each other, sometimes with hands placed as if touching. At Valdaro in Italy, two skeletons were found locked in an embrace, face to face, arms wrapped around each other. They had been buried that way deliberately, intentionally. They are known today as the Lovers of Valdaro, and they have been in that embrace for 6,000 years. Genetic studies of ancient populations show patterns consistent with long-term pair bonding. Males and females who lived and reproduced together across years, not just a single season. Some researchers now believe that something resembling monogamous partnership, not marriage in the legal sense, but a committed bond between two individuals, may go back hundreds of thousands of years. Love, it seems, did not wait for the invention of the wedding ring. So was prehistoric love real? Or was it just biology in disguise? Dopamine and oxytocin running a survival program dressed up to look like something more? Here's the honest answer. It was both. And so is yours. The neurochemistry of love evolved because it served survival. Pair bonding kept children alive. Attachment kept partners together through hardship. Jealousy protected investment. Every feeling we associate with romantic love has an evolutionary explanation, but that does not make it less real. The pain of losing someone you love is real, whether it is caused by neurons or poetry. The way a person's presence can make a dangerous world feel survivable, that was real for a woman sitting beside a fire 100,000 years ago, the same way it is real for you today. Evolution gave us the hardware, but what we do with it, the loyalty, the sacrifice, the choosing to stay, that is something we build ourselves. Prehistoric humans chose each other in a world that gave them every reason not to trust, not to bond, not to open themselves to loss. And they did it anyway. That more than anything is what love actually is. 100,000 years ago, somewhere on the African continent, a man and a woman sat beside a fire together. They did not have words for what they felt. They had no songs yet, no poetry, no ceremony to mark the moment. But something passed between them, something that pulled them back to each other day after day through cold and hunger and danger and loss. Something that made them choose each other again and again in a world that offered no guarantees. We have built civilizations on top of that feeling. We have written libraries about it. We have made it into art and music and religion and law. But we did not invent it. It was already there, older than language, older than fire, older than the first word any human being ever spoke. Love is not a modern invention. It is one of the oldest things we are. And the next time it finds you, the next time your heart moves for someone in a way you cannot quite explain, know that you are feeling something that has been passed down, generation by generation, for longer than civilization has existed. You're feeling something ancient. You're feeling something deeply, profoundly human.